Good evening, everyone. Welcome into the late edition of Overtime. As always, we really appreciate you staying up late with us because we're going to get into some basketball now. It is time for the playoffs. No more regular season. It is playoff high school basketball, and it's going to be an exciting run here the next 3 or 4 weeks. Joined by the captain, Carey, as he is always here with us for Overtime and on Chalk Talk. Of course, Captain, some games kind of got moved around because of the weather. Some was postponed, moved back, but nonetheless, they're getting them in. And, of course, boy, last night there was a ton of great basketball games on tap.
Yeah, you're right. This is the time of the year when it comes to high school basketball that I think all of us look forward to. And got a chance to get out to Irmo High School last night to watch that basketball game against Conway. Conway was actually coached by a guy by the name of Mike Hopkins. Mike Hopkins is a Lower Richland native, played for those guys in the early 80s, also as assistant basketball coach at Western Carolina and East Carolina. But Devontae Schuler.
35 last night.
35 big ones. But this basketball team, it was a one-point game at the half, and Irmo scored almost 50 points in the second half. Devontae Schuler was unbelievable. I sat next to an SEC assistant basketball coach watching Devontae Schuler, and there was a 4-play sequence that just showed why he's such a great two-way player. In this sequence, he assisted on the layup, went down to the other end, got a steal, laid the ball up on the other end, blocked the shot on the other end, Pizzle, before he came down and scored the basketball on the other end. Just a two-way player in that 4-play sequence is what makes coaches go so crazy. Just the effort, just the overall impact he's able to have on a basketball game. And Coach Wilbur does a really good job of surrounding him with the right type of guys, shooters, Bond and those other guys over there shoot the basketball, Gun. It was fun watching those guys play basketball.
Devontae Schuler, 19 points in the third quarter, and of course that was a tight ball game. Conway came in and played them tight, but then there was an explosion in that third quarter led by Devontae Schuler. AC Floor and Wren. Now, we don't get a chance to see Wren from the upstate captain, but we do see AC Floor, and yes, the Pastor Picks #1 team in the Midlands did not disappoint.
So the revolving door is closed, huh?
Oh, it's closed on that one for sure.
Hey, from what I'm told, it was a dunk fest over at AC Floor last night.
It was.
Had a chance to talk to Joshua Staley, head coach, and you know, the one thing he emphasized, he talked about those guys playing with solid energy throughout the game, and he's challenging his kids to make sure they play with that type of energy throughout the entire 4 quarters. But it was a dunk fest, had a lot of fun, and he's looking forward to the next game.
You know who led him in scoring last night? My man James Murray Boyles, and of course coming back off that ankle injury when they beat, I guess it was Dreer. Who was it? The Lower Richland game they stormed the court. Excuse me. And he got hurt with the little ankle, but he's back.
That's
James
called Gamble
Murray.
that actually got hurt.
That was Gamble, excuse me, but Boyles is my guy that
Boyles,
I like.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I just messed up totally. But anyway.
Are you going to now put him back into your top 5?
No, I got somebody else.
Yeah, I saw you on Twitter last night.
All right.
I just hope one of you guys didn't have an off night.
Well, I'm sorry, Gamble was the guy that got hurt, but James Murray Boyles is kind of my guy I like a whole lot. All right, Dreer versus Walhalla. Here we go. You ever heard of Walhalla, Captain?
Yes, up near Greenville.
Yeah, upstate team, but there he is. You see him doing the money thing? The Johnny Manziel, Tevin Mack. You got like that. Mama, that's that young man again. Yep, right there, Captain.
And he's fun to watch. Had a chance to talk to Coach Jeff DiBattista. Debo is what
How
we
you
call
pronounce
him.
that again?
DiBattista.
DiBattista.
Yeah, we call him Debo. Just call him Debo for short. But the one thing that he's been challenging his guys, he wants to get, believe it or not, I think he's been listening to us. He wants to get balanced scoring from his guys.
Oh, yeah.
And he's been encouraging those guys to share the basketball. He wants more energy. He was happy about the fact that at one point last night, during the third quarter, they were up 25 points.
Yeah.
So he emptied the bench. Everybody got an opportunity to play, and it was a way for his basketball team to have fun. But they ended up winning by 11 points. I don't think he was too excited, too happy about that to dwindle away the lead after being up 25. But he's been talking about sharing the basketball, everybody being on the same page, and not having to rely so much on Tevin Mack to get it done. Even though he's capable for the most part to get you a bunch of points. But you can't win, especially as we penetrate the playoffs just a little bit more. He's imploring from his kids to give more help to Tevin.
Well, Michael Jordan needed a Steve Kerr, John Paxson, a Dennis Rodman, Harvey Grant, Horace Grant. I can go on. Great players need some help. So
who did you have in high school to help you?
I didn't need too much. I mean, 25 or 16, there's not much you can do about that. Let's go to your high school, C.A. Johnson and Blackville Hilda. We didn't talk much about C.A. Johnson, but they did win the state title last year, Captain, without you.
They did win the state title. And you know what?
Yeah.
I'll be the first to admit The team success snuck up on me a little bit.
Really?
Yeah, because they're 1A, and a lot of the teams that they play, I don't think they have any local teams in this area that are 1A. So it makes it a little bit difficult, especially with the teams we've been covering. But, Darryl Jobs has done a terrific job. They won the region. Matter of fact, the boys and girls both won the region this year, which is a rarity. But he's done a good job. I saw this team play early on, and I didn't think they'd be able to get it done.
You didn't feel it?
No, I didn't feel it early on, but of course the competition has something to do with it. They were playing up a little bit, playing against teams in 3A and 4A, and those teams were just a little bit better. But congratulations to those guys. They've turned the corner. They've done a really good job. And there's a kid by the name of Taj Green, 6'4", 6'5", that's really good on the perimeter over there at C.A. Johnson.
Yeah, good win for C.A. Johnson over Blackville Hill. Now, a team that we haven't talked about in the minutes too much, Airport High School, taking on Myrtle Beach. And, of course, Airport get a big win, Captain. They're going to advance and move on. Now, with some, maybe might have called this an upset, I don't know, but Airport gets the win.
Yeah, they did get the win. One of the early games played during the week. I don't think it was that impacted by the weather. But, I know Myrtle Beach has a really good shooter, Snyder. Snyder's the son of Jeff Snyder. Those that are involved in AAU understand who Jeff Snyder is. He's a president of Big Shots and big AAU program. They travel around the country, put on some of the best tournaments. So don't know a whole lot about Airport High School, but it was good to see another local team get it done.
Well, you're speaking of not so much local. We talk about the Gamecocks a lot, right? The men and the women Gamecocks. But I'm talking about the Sumter Gamecocks, a former Gamecock, JoJo English, and this basketball team. I watch these guys practice. JoJo gets after a good basketball team down in Sumter.
He is, and he gets after them because he has a really, you know what? I don't use this word often, but he has a great basketball mind. JoJo English has a great basketball mind.
I'm not shocked with that.
No, he has a great basketball mind, and you're right. He gets after those guys, and Sumter isn't one of those teams that we've talked about. Maybe we should have talked about him a little bit more, but he does a really good job. He's motivated. He's hungry. He wants to penetrate the tournament very deeply this year. We'll see how that happens. I'm rooting for him. He's a Columbian guy. He's a part of my South Carolina basketball family, so I'm hoping he gets it done. And selfishly, he's done a really good job in Sumter, but I like to see him come back to the metro area.
Yeah, well,
I like to see him come back to Columbia and bring some of that basketball knowledge to this area.
Yeah, well, maybe something will open up for JoJo later on. But speaking of JoJo and coaching, all I remember, you're a pro-am out there when my team was undefeated with Devin Down, and I had an obligation, a celebrity golf tournament, and he had to coach the championship game for me. He didn't do too well, and I'm still a little bit upset about that, JoJo. Just remember that you lost the championship at the Captain's Pro-Am. I should have won that trophy. All right, when we come back, we'll talk about this week's game to watch. And, yes, my team, AC Flora, is involved. I'll tell you about it after the break. All right, welcome back to Overtime, presented by Missy Miller and Prudential Realty. Of course, it's now time for our game to watch. And, of course, it's going to be a good one. Irmo, Tim Whipple versus the guys of Wando from the Low Country, the largest school in the state, Captain. They won it last year. There's going to be a tremendous matchup. It's going to be an exciting basketball game.
I was over at the basketball game last night. I had a chance to speak to a few of the Irmo coaches, and I didn't know Wando was going to be their next opponent. You mentioned the biggest school in the state. They're going to bring a crowd.
Absolutely.
They'll probably bring a crowd that's going to satisfy one half of the gym Saturday night. It's going to be a challenge also from a size standpoint. Wando happens to possess Matt Pegram, 6'10", Wofford signee. He's a good kid, played over at the Chick-fil-A. There's also a kid by the name of Jamez Rogers, 6'4", 6'5", wing, that had gotten some attention early from some different schools across the country. Has some maybe off-the-court issues a little bit this year that maybe halted some of that momentum he's been able to gain, he's been able to create over the summer. And they have a shooter. They're going to be ready to play. Again, they won the championship last year. They're going to bring a big crowd. Their crowd plays off of their head coach, Coach David Eaton. Very confident guy. He doesn't like in that area at all. So it's going to be a big.
He's won the championship.
Absolutely. And he's
so when
bringing
you win championship, you can be cocky.
Sure, you're right. And I didn't use the word cocky. I said he's very confident.
Well, arrogant, cocky is all the same to me. So.
But a big, tall glass of water for Irmo Saturday night. Wando come to town with size. How do you beat them? You're going to have to speed the game a little bit to take that size advantage away from them in the half.
Well, it sounds like UConn and South Carolina. UConn sped the game up to take advantage of South Carolina's size, so maybe that's kind of what we'll see with Irmo. But they do have a guy by the name of Devontae Shuler that can maybe will that team and help that team. And a guy on the sideline that can also be arrogant or cocky, Tim Whipple, who's won several championship state titles himself. So,
no way.
You know, I'm an Irmo fan in this ball game. Just saying. Let's look at some other games to watch. Of course, West Ashley at Sumter at the Fighting JoJo English. Again, some of these teams we don't know a whole lot about because they're not in our area. Spartanburg at Blythewood, Dreer. Well, South Point captain, you talked about that game.
Yeah, I spoke to Coach DeBatista last night after the game, and he talked about the tremendous challenge having to go to Rock Hill to play against South Point, who's coached by one of my former teammates. A lot of South Carolina guys.
Point guard up there, huh?
Yeah, Melvin Watson. He's done a really good job up at South Point. It's going to be one heck of a challenge for Dreer. They're going to get after Dreer. They're going to speed them up. They're going to force somebody else to score the basketball outside of Tevin Mack. They play fast. They play ugly. They muddy up the water. So it's going to be one heck of a challenge for the Dreer Blue Devils as they make their way to Rock Hill Friday night.
Didn't Melvin take his team to the state title game last year? Or was he close in the playoffs?
He was close. He's been close the last couple of years.
Yeah, I thought so. I mean, they were good in the postseason. But this is a good basketball team. Kind of, y'all have similarities. Y'all built the same 5'10", 5'11" point guards that both played at South Carolina. Very good court general. Let's take another look at some other games I want to just mention real quick. Airport, they get the win last night. Of course, they go down to Darlington, Mid-Carolina. They took care of the Fighting Janet Parker, the Chief Route Braves, and then, of course, Christchurch at your school. C.A. Johnson, of course, trying to, again, defend their 1A state title. But there are some of the games that that's going to be coming up. Spring Valley, I want to mention real quickly, Spring Valley and Keenan, we don't know the opponent because of the weather times have changed, so we can't mention those tonight.
AC Flora also.
And AC Flora, so we can't get to those now because those guys are playing tonight as we are doing this show, so we'll have that for you on next week. When we come back after this timeout, it's time for the five, and the captain's going to talk about some of the coaches, no ranking order, but some of the top coaches in the Millers. Hear about it after this break. Welcome back. Now, time for some individual accolades on my part when it comes to selecting players to a very, very just classy list of players in the Millers. I got so many messages and people are telling me all the time, Corey, you're overlooking X, Y, and Z. And maybe so. And I think there's one guy that I probably did overlook, and I'm willing to talk about him in just a moment for my top 5 players in the Millers. Here we go. You know what number 1 is. You already know. It's like a broken record. P.J. Dozier, the big, nice 6'7" point guard out of Spring Valley. This team is getting better. He's getting better. His knees getting healthier, and he's starting to get into his prime now. So I'm looking forward to see what he's going to continue to do throughout the playoffs. Tevin Mack, you know, we can talk about Coach Debo and getting other players involved. I understand that. I've been that guy saying the same thing. But at the end of the day, if Tevin Mack is not good, if he's not doing a Johnny Manziel, guess what? Dreer's not going to win. Number 3, Devontae Shuler. I'm telling you what, man, this guy making it hard for me. I almost had a 2A and 2B because Devontae Shuler, what he did last night, 19 points in the third quarter, 35 points, not just that game, every week he is showing up and he's showing out. As you said, one play, he blocked, he drilled, he does it all for Irmo. Great player. Number 4, 7 Woods, hadn't heard a lot recently about him, but he did play well at the end of the season. 28 points in the last game that I saw. He stepped up and played big, but he's a great talent regardless. And then number 5, welcome in Mr. Jared Richardson. Welcome in Laura Richardson. You almost got in my top 5 teams in the Millers, but Jared Richardson, I had a friend that told me about this kid, Jared Richardson, and last night, way up the road in Seneca, South Carolina. Many of you don't even know what that is, but I do now. 51 points in a high school game. I brag on my 26 and 15. That's average. But this guy doubled me up, Captain. He doubled me up, 51 points pretty much. And for that, I don't care. You can call it a revolving door. You can call it what you want to call it. I call Jared Richardson really nice basketball player that's worthy to be in my top 5.
Yeah, as soon as I saw you on Twitter last night and saw the
Wow.
number of points that Jared Richardson got,
Yeah.
I felt sorry for somebody in your top 5, and I had a feeling it was going to be Xavier McDaniel because, again, it's a revolving door.
It is. It's week by week.
You keep the door open, and you continue to usher in players after they have 1 or 2 good games. But you know what? That's to be celebrated. He had a terrific game. I'm happy for that kid. He's a kid that we've tried to push and get his name out there a little bit, but unfortunately, he's what we call a tweener. He's out of position in high school, so now that whole question on how that's going to translate to the next level makes it just a little bit difficult when coaches are trying to evaluate him and assess how he fits in on the next level.
Unstoppable. He's unstoppable. I got tweets that this guy can't be stopped, Captain. Now, you said more than I do. Can't be stopped, Jared Richardson.
He was unstoppable last night.
A lot of nights he is.
Well, he was unstoppable last night. He did a terrific game last night.
I appreciate you having a hard time saying it. But let's talk about some unstoppable coaches because there's some unstoppable coaches in the Millers that coaching kids like Jared Richardson.
Yeah, you've heard me talk about
Yes.
the Tim Whipples, Zach Norris, Bailey has, Jeff Whalen. Tim Whipple, 5 out of 8 state championships. 5 of those times he's been named state champion. Zach Norris, 4 out of 6. He's 4 for 4 over at Keene High School. Bailey Harris, 2 for 6 out at Lexington. I think those 3 would serve as the class of basketball coaches in this area. But there's some other guys that we don't talk about a whole lot. Jeff Whalen over at Heathwood Hall. He's 1 for 3 over in the state championship in skis. He does a terrific job. I love watching his out-of-bound plays. Zeke Washington is one of the really, really good defensive basketball coaches, and more importantly, he's one of the really, really good guys. JoJo English. I use the word great. I don't use that word often, Pastor. You know that. JoJo English has one of the great basketball minds in this area. He gets after his guys. He's fiery. He's detail-oriented. He's a guy that can coach the game. John Combs, Jeff DiBattista. The reason I like both of those guys because they're part of my Gamecock family. They come from the Eddie Fogler coaching tree. So when I watch those teams play, when I watch their action, when I watch their execution, I know exactly where it's coming from. So those guys always get a plug from me. And lastly, Mark McClam over at Hammond. You know, he's a fiery, he's a fiery guy. And we share one thing in common. We played the point guard position. He played the point guard down at College of Charleston. And spoke to him last week, had a message for you. Wanted me to tell you to lay off of his guy, Seventh Woods, because Seventh Woods is good enough to take over a game anytime he wants. Seventh Woods is only doing what he's asking him to do as a coach. So he wanted me to tell you, as a point guard, Seven is playing the true PG position. Lay off of Seven Woods, courtesy Mark McClam.
Well, thank you, Mark McClam. I appreciate the message, and you know I have. When you score 28 and when you take over a team, I don't have to talk about you. But I'm going to talk about you if you don't win that Skeeter championship.
Yeah, you got to win it, Mark.
Yeah, or you coming on the coaching list and the players list.
You got to win it, Mark. I love you. But you got to win it this year. You got 3 college prospects on that basketball team. You got to win it.
I'm just sitting here and I'm watching Mr. McClam. All right, we got to go to break. We'll talk about those top 5 teams when we get back. And I'm going to have a message for somebody in the Midlands. We'll be back. All right. Yeah, 5. My top 5 teams. I just displayed my players. Well, it's now time to release the top 5 pastor picks here in the middle. Here we go. Number 1. Yes, they fly high. The Falcons. They do what they need to do. They got Ryan Davis. They got, Broyles. I can just go on. A good basketball team. And, yes, they are well coached, and they play hard. Number 2, Irmo. Again, I can go 1A and 1B here, Captain, but I'm not. Irmo's still number 2 because AC Florida's coming off state title last year. That's why they're number 1, but Irmo pushing very hard for that spot. Number 3, Spring Valley. I like this team in the playoff. Got Jordan Bruner back. You let us know that. This team could be dangerous in the playoffs. Number 4 is Keenan. I'm mad with them. I almost took them out just because they beat my team, the Central Pageland Eagles, but they're a good basketball team coached by Zach Norris. Welcome in number 5.
Wow.
Lower Richland, the first time they've made an appearance, it took to the playoffs to get in, but this team is playing some good basketball, and yes, they've been right in the mix. And Jared Richardson, because he's 51 and go on a roll and get it done, this guy going to make a difference in the playoffs in 3. Watch out for Lower Richland. Shout out to my folks out there in Eastover. Welcome in to the POP Top 5. That's right.
Well, here's a secret. Here's the worst kept secret. If you have a good game and if you hit passed up on Twitter, you get into his top 5 as a player or as a team.
I mean, you got to have some evidence. You got to have some evidence to get this. You can't hit me up on Twitter.
Let me show you what a real top 5 looks like. Let me show you what a real top 5 looks like. Some changes. Number 5, Hammond. I had them at number 4. I had to move them a little bit.
Oh, it's a revolving door.
Well, they're still there, but competition right now, the other teams ahead of them are probably playing a little bit better competition.
Coach
Keenan is at number 4.
Yeah, dropping down. Dropping down.
Zach Norris. Spring Valley, AC Florida. I had a very, very tough time. I almost had Spring Valley as my number 2 team because of Jordan Bruner. Jordan Bruner adds a different dimension. He's 6'8", and in high school, when you're 6'5", 6'7", 6'8" across the front, that adds a different dimension. Irmo, I saw those guys get almost 50 points last night. The master, if Phil Jackson is the Zen master, Tim Whipple is the zone master with the way he offers multiple defenses, game after game after game. Watch out for the Irmo Yellow Jackets. Tough matchup Saturday.
You heard of nepotism and favoritism?
Yes.
You know those words?
Yes.
Nepotism and favoritism. I just throw that out there. Just Google that later on when it comes to this whole situation. But let's just say this real quickly. I know our time is almost expired here, but all of these teams are a good team. And McClam, let me go back to McClam. You brought him up as one of your top up-and-coming coaches and the point guard and all of this. But then when you go on your list, he's dropping like the stock market. I mean, his team is dropping. Next week, he'll be out of your top 5. Now, so what's going on? I know skis and competition is not good. We've talked about that. We try to keep it real as best we can on this show. But you're dropping them like it's hot.
Well, you shouldn't say that skis is not good competition. Maybe the competition isn't comparable to some of the other teams that are now in the top 5, but you shouldn't say competition isn't good. It's not comparable to some of the other teams.
This year it's not been what it's been. Heathwood, Augusta Christian, some of those teams that normally can bow to you, they're not as good. A team down in Charleston, the Low Country, that used to have a really good basketball. Yeah, they're not as good. So there used to be better competition. Let's just be real. And Skeezer, now
it's down a little bit, which is why Mark got to win it.
He has to win it. I mean, for real, Mark, you got to win this thing, and it need to be easy for you. When you got 3 Division I players on Skeezer, when you can beat Spring Valley by 30, and we talk about this team maybe winning the state in the 4A, you got to win it. So you own the clock.
Mark, you're now on the clock, my man.
All right, and we're on the clock because we got to get out of here. As always, thank you for staying up late with us. For the Captain Carey Rich, for Vinny Calabrese, I am the pastor of Payne Corey Miller. You've been in the overtime.